Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in June. I'm very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. Hello, welcome back to Big Mouth, and you can keep this and any other conversation going over on my Twitter at MoviesTVMad, my Vero at BigMouth1, and the extension to this channel is my Instagram at Big Mouth. So, welcome to the DCEU Extra, and you know what the DCEU Extra really means? I forgot to talk about something on today's DCEU Daily. Naughty, naughty boy. So I found this brilliant article on Screen Rant by our friend, the Release the Snyder Cut friend anyway, Shahraz Faruqi. It's brilliant. Justice League, all the Lord of the Rings parallels in the Snyder Cut. Now this is fun. This is fun. Let's give this a read. The Justice League cut is full of parallels to the Lord of the Rings. The original 240-minute DC story was going to take inspiration from the iconic story by J.R.R. Tolkien in more ways than one, but that didn't end up happening due to the film's extensive reshoots. Basically, the whole film was reshot. Basically, even Zack's scenes were reshot, the ones that they used, which was apparently 10%. Despite some misconceptions, Zack Snyder's original framework for the DC Extended Universe was not to create an equal to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The MCU did a wonderful job creating a universe full of independent parts coming together for large-scale crossover events. Snyder was well aware for DC to become its own juggernaut, it would have to do things differently than its Marvel counterpart. Instead of a cinematic universe like the MCU, Zack Snyder wanted to go for more a mythological monomyth, akin to Star Wars, and more accurately, The Lord of the Rings. And how exciting is that? The first two parts are there to see. The evidence is there. It's a lot more Lord of the Rings than the MCU, isn't it? The parallels between Justice League, Snyder Cut, and The Lord of the Rings can start as early as the runtime, with Snyder once again confirming the existence and length of the Snyder Cut. The runtimes of both series of films are similar. The extended cuts of Lord of the Rings are 208 minutes, 223 minutes and 251 minutes respectively. The Snyder Cut fits right in that time frame still. The parallels go beyond simply runtimes. There are story beats, character arcs and full sequences that seem to pay homage to arguably the greatest film trilogy of all time. I think it is the greatest film trilogy. What Jackson accomplished adapting Tolkien's stories was brilliant, and I'd say all 6 movies. It's the greatest franchise ever. There's depth, and look, it's beautiful. How Jackson was ever able to adapt those books like that, I don't know. I mean, a lot of people have tried it. A lot of people wanted to try it, but it was literally impossible. And Peter did the impossible. On a story level, the Justice League Snyder Cut and the Lord of the Rings share more similarities than one would initially think. The concepts of items of power, the mother boxes representing DC, and the rings of power representing Lord of the Rings, each holds significant weight to the story as items that can destroy the world if held in the wrong hands. In both stories, these items of power are divided amongst different tribes and species of Earth to watch over to prevent any one side from getting too powerful. The rings were divided between the elves, dwarves, and men, while the mother boxes were divided between Amazonians, Atlanteans, and humans. But beyond that, the Lord of the Rings featured an ancient battle where all sides of humanity came together to defeat Sauron. It was considered one of the most important victories of Middle-earth and immediately became a legend to all who came therefore. The battle between Middle-earth and Sauron shares a striking resemblance to the ancient battle in Justice League. Amazonians, Atlanteans and humans all came together to push back Darkseid himself and save the Earth, but abate temporarily Darkseid like Sauron was pushed away from his goals for many years. But the battle was not won, and a new group of people would have to finish what the ancient civilization started. Very true. The comparisons are brilliant. One of the most immediate thematic parallels that spark between the Justice League Snyder Cut and the Lord of the Rings is the hero's journey and the concept of a fellowship. Snyder's love for Joseph Campbell's work is palpable on his own, and this is something that inspired George Lucas with Star Wars. We know that. his own. Campbell's influence is widespread over Man of Steel and Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. Superman's own symbol carries quotes from Campbell written in Kryptonian. Wow, the Man of Steel is on Campbell's The Hero's Journey throughout the saga, and that Snyder planned naturally. When Snyder's saga gets to part 3, which is the Justice League Snyder Cut, Tolkien's work perfectly fits in. You see, isn't it great in life when you listen to other people, you listen to other fans, and you listen to them talk? They actually teach you something that I didn't know. Watching Chris Wong Svensson's Ping Pong Flicks taught me a lot about fandom, about DC, about, Snyder, things I didn't know. We all think we know it all, but isn't it great when we actually open our ears and listen? But be quiet for a minute and not shout, and actually listen to the other person saying. We learn. I didn't know Zach loved Joseph Campbell. I didn't even know that there's a lot of text in Kryptonian from Campbell's books. And it's beautiful because, as I've already said, George Lucas, the whole reason Star Wars is what it is Joseph Campbell inspired. So amazing. About the hero's journey, that's what Campbell was interested in. Writing about a hero's journey. But, there's rules in that. And if you break these rules, like a lot of modern films do with rebooting Star Wars or relaunching it with the sequel trilogy, you get it wrong. Because they kind of waved off the path of Campbell's hero's journey and were more focusing on identity politics. And when you do that, you forget about developing characters and making the piece interesting, you are going to fail. The Fellowship of the Ring comprised of nine companions, all from different regions of the world. You see, that's called representation, people, but doing it effectively and you actually interested in those people. All from different regions of the world, each with their own strengths, coming together for a common goal. The Fellowship of Snyder's Arc is the Justice League. Once again, like the ancient battle parallel, each member of the Justice League represents the people who fought to save Earth before. Wonder Woman represents the Amazons. Aquaman represents the Atlanteans. Batman and Flash represent humanity. Superman is the angelic figure like Gandalf. Wow, yeah, I like that comparison. And Cyborg is the heart of the story like Frodo. Interesting. No, that is very interesting, actually. Snyder has said many times that his Justice League features Cyborg at the very heart of the story. In many ways, Cyborg is the main character of Justice League, showcasing his origin story, internal conflict, tragedies, and finally his resolve. Cyborg, unlike the rest of the Justice League, never asked to be put in this situation. He had no dreams of being a hero. He did not have the guilt of Batman, the destiny of Superman, the weight of their civilization like Wonder Woman or Aquaman. Instead, he was dragged into the battle due to the Mother Box. Cyborg's story is almost identical to Frodo's. If we were to compare each Fellowship member to their DC counterpart, Aragorn is Batman, Gandalf is Superman, Legolas is Wonder Woman, Gimli is Aquaman, interesting, Sam is Flash, and Frodo is Cyborg. Yeah, these are very interesting comparisons. The temptation that Cyborg faces due to the Mother Box is close to the burden of the ring that Frodo carries. Neither of them asked to have that burden, but they must carry it, as they are the primary targets of their respective enemies. Sauron and Darkseid both send their second in command to do their bidding, like Saruman in The Lord of the Rings. Steppenwolf is the villain the Justice League must defeat to clear the path to Darkseid. Cyborg is the heart of the story from what we have seen of the Justice League Snyder Cut from Snyder's teases. It's clear that Cyborg would be tempted by the Mother Box to submit to Darkseid, whether it's nightmare sequences of the box promising Cyborg his parents back, or Steppenwolf hell-bent on killing him to extract the Mother Box. Victor Stone is the centre of the conflict, and it's up to the Fellowship to protect him until he completes his goal. And of course, we saw none of this in the theatrical cut. And this is beautiful. And he's right here. We know. Zach's told us so much now. We know this film was going to be full of depth, compelling, unique. And it tells you about a company like Warner Brothers, that they refuse to release this, how they feel about storytelling and filmmaking. It isn't good, is it? And until they decide to release it, we're going to keep on thinking they're not really interested in creative freedom and creating great stories and movies. Much like Cyborg being Frodo, Superman's parallels with Gandalf are also striking. Gandalf is the most powerful member of the Fellowship. He also presents the clearest danger to Sauron. With Gandalf leading the Fellowship, the group had a true north to follow and always had an optimistic view of their journey. All of that changed when Gandalf sacrificed his life in order for his friends to survive and continue the fight. Wow! Superman's opening sequence was already going to have heavy Gandalf parallels, yet it goes even deeper than that. If we try to superimpose the Lord of the Rings trilogy to Snyder's Justice League plan, the Snyder Cut would roughly align with the Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. Wow! You know what? I've been pumped to see this film ever since I heard it existed, but this just excites me even more. In this installment, the Fellowship is reeling from the death of Gandalf. While his sacrifice let them survive, his lack of presence is a huge loss for the team. The opening sequence of both films featured the death of their strongest hero shown in a new light. To reveal new truths, yet it was not the end of their stories. The primary antagonist of both films is the second in command, so Sauron and Steppenwolf, each side, would have prevailed, if not for the return of the hero to turn the tide. If the return of Gandalf at the Battle of the Hornburg at the end of the film is any indication of Superman's role in the Snyder Cut, we can rest easy knowing Superman would be at his most heroic in the film. With a 214-minute runtime, there is really no telling how many more parallels actually exist in the Justice League Snyder Cut to the Lord of the Rings. It's clear Snyder was intent on creating a full mythological saga using these iconic DC characters, giving audiences something they simply have never seen before from the medium. By taking inspiration and drawing parallels from Lord of the Rings, the Justice League Snyder Cut was going to be something that would have changed how we look at these characters. Not only that, it would have changed how people would have looked at superhero movies, and it would have made the people who didn't like MOS and BVS actually think, bloody hell, it all makes sense now. But Warner Brothers and Kevin Sugihara chickened out. They chickened out at the most pivotal time. And that's why we are fighting to release the Snyder Cut. We mustn't stop. We must see this film.